The Mantesian tribe. It's a tribe near the very top of the Castanean tree. It's the only one of its kind in Castana, a tribe where they worship their leader as a goddess. It's an unsettling place where, if you do as much as think something bad of their leader, they will not hesitate to murder you on the spot. And the Mantis folks, they do not care about the rest of Castana. This is why seeing a mantis in the showdown is quite rare. But every time one appears, it always makes it to the quarterfinals or the semifinals at the very least. Mantis folks are mighty warriors, ones who shall never be underestimated. This is a very well-known fact in the rest of the Castanean kingdom, and it's not uncommon for warriors who seek experience and training to move to Mantesian tribe to spar with the powerful warriors that live there. This was the exact reasoning behind my decision, as even I, who lacked any interaction with other bugs, knew about the Mantesian tribe from the tales I've heard about it from Stageron. And so I set off. The trip lasted 2 days, during which I quickly passed through the web pit, a spider lair located in the very center of the Castanean tree. The web pit is also a weird place, one different than the rest of Castana. In it, there are a few families of spiders that lived for as long as the Castanean kingdom existed, and they almost never leave their home. The only 2 families that leave the web pit are a small family of a spider species called tarantula and another one of a species called the spitting spiders. A member of 2 of their families leaves their home once every few seasons to participate in the showdown, but not a single one of them had ever won the tournament. Other than that, the webpit folks are very closed off. They do not allow anyone to enter their lair except to pass through it as quickly as they can to get to the other side of the kingdom. The only real purpose of it was the incredibly valuable silk that spiders produced, a material used to make a ton of weapons and architecture. This place is of little significance to the story. In fact, I wouldn't even be mentioning it if not for one very exceptional lady. An oddity that will appear much later in the story. A sad, lonely black widow called Webonetta. Webonetta the Fallen, the 6th Great Knight, the unknown savior. But I got a little off track. There is still 20 seasons left until Webonetta makes her appearance, and her impact on Castana, as well as the relationship between Caesar and the rest of the knights. I just wanted to mention that because as the young me was passing through the web pit, Webonetta's life was slowly starting to fall apart. As I arrived to the entrance of the Mantesian tribe, I was approached by 2 Mantis guards. "Pay a tribute to Goddess Mantisa," one of them said to me, while the other stood with his claws raised, carefully observing me. I'm sorry, a tribute?" I asked in confusion. "A tribute. How much you pay will show how much you respect our goddess. Your tribute will decide your fate," the guard clarified. Fuck, I thought. I did not have any tar on me. As the young fool that I was, did not even think about bringing any to begin with. I started panicking. What the hell do I do now? My internal voice screamed. The 2 guards started to lose patience as the time slowly passed. And who knows what would have happened to me that day if not for one young warrior who stepped in to save me. "There you are," I heard someone say, 2 lengthy legs wrapped around me as the wasp threw a heavy bag to the 2 guards. "He's with me. Is 60 trao good enough for me and my friend here?" the young wasp asked. The 2 guards stood in silence for a few moments before one of them answered, "You may pass," and they let us enter the Mantesian tribe. The gates closed behind us as we stepped inside, and the wasp quickly let go of me and straightened his face. "Thank you," I said, still processing what had happened. when the wasp told me, "I didn't do it for you. I did it because of your stupidity. It could have had a greater impact than you think. If you had gotten in a fight with them." He stopped for a moment to check me out before continuing. "You would probably take them down, I admit. But an outsider coming here with no trowel, killing 2 guards, disrespecting the tribe would surely make the mantis folks close the gates to the tribe for who knows how long. And time is precious. I cannot afford to waste," the wasp said in a strict tone. "You're right, I'm sorry. Should have came prepared. I apologize for my ignorance. I'm Dan, by the way." The wasp looked at me with an annoyed look in his eyes and unwillingly said, "Caesar, I advise you to not get in my way, dung eater." He spread his wings and started flying. This left me feeling a little offended. But I understood him. I mean, he was right. I could have cost him the valuable time that he could have spent in the tribe. So, to clear my mind, I decided to take a short walk throughout the tribe. The entire city had a ton of similar-looking houses shaped like the black orbs that grew on top of the tree. In the center of the city was a giant statue of a female mantis, their goddess Mantissa. I didn't care to come too close to it, knowing how much they worshipped her. Behind the statue was the biggest building in the Mantisian tribe, the Church of Mantissa. The church was surrounded by what I thought were weird but beautiful white flowers. I wasn't sure where to go to search for a sparring partner, but then, as I looked towards the church, I saw Caesar landing near it. Could it be that that's where all the fights are scheduled? I thought to myself and decided to see where Caesar goes next. Caesar tried to enter the church, but he was stopped by 2 guards, 2 little white mantises, who wore Castanean helmets. Caesar froze in place and told them something. I was too far away to hear what. When the little guards heard him through, they let him enter the church. I found it weird that Caesar suddenly froze like that. I guessed that he was just being careful not to make them angry or something. I mean, those tiny guards couldn't defeat even the weakest of bugs, let alone someone like Caesar or me. After a few minutes, I decided to enter the church myself, so I walked to the entrance and the 2 little guards stopped me. "Why do you want to enter?" one of them said in a squeaky voice. "I could crush you without trying," I thought to myself. What can 2 tiny bugs like you do against someone like me or like Caesar? Stop acting so tough. "I want to fight," I answered without thinking. The 2 little guards stared at me. They seemed upset. This lasted for a few seconds as I was getting nervous. Whatever Caesar said, it made them let him enter immediately. This must have meant that I wasn't supposed to answer like I did. I felt something, or someone next to me, in front of me, behind me, above me. Suddenly, I felt the feeling of being entrapped. I slightly turned my head to the right, and what I saw made me feel another new emotion. Fear. Something that I have never felt, even when Ozara struck. What made me feel this way was the scene of hundreds, maybe even thousands of tiny little white mantises surrounding me. Then I realized those weird flowers that were scattered all around the church, they were no flowers. No, they were flower mantises. No, wait, hear me out, please. I panicked because the mantis army was slowly approaching me from all sides. One of the 2 guards with helmets raised his left claw and the army stopped. Thank you. You misunderstood me. I am not here to fight you, or your goddess, or anything like that. I'm here because of the same reason as the wasp that entered before me. I am here because I seek fighting experience. I want to prepare for the showdown. That's all I'm here for, I swear. I gave my best to explain the misunderstanding. What followed was a minute or two of complete silence. Silence in which all I could do was pray that the guards would call off the army. And my prayers were clearly answered as the 2 guards raised their left claws and slowly lowered them. Seeing this, the flower mantis army slowly retreated. The church was once again surrounded by flowers. "Thank you," I was relieved. The guards had an angry look in their eyes, but they let me enter the church, nonetheless. "Your room is this way, mister," I heard someone say. "Thank you," I heard Caesar's voice. I turned towards where it was coming from, and I saw Caesar walking close to me with a mantis. He noticed me, but decided to ignore me and went on his way. The church was decorated with a lot of mosaics and portraits of Mantissa, as well as the previous mantis goddesses. In the middle of the first floor of the church was a mantis-shaped altar, where a dozen of mantises of all kinds and ages prayed, undisturbed by the presence of foreign bugs. I decided to ask the mantis that was with Caesar earlier where to go. "Excuse me."
"Ah, another foreigner. I assume you two are here for the training and sparring, correct?"
the mantis asked me in a cheerful tone. "Yes."
"Good. I will need your name and signature. Follow me."
He brought me to another room filled with a lot of wardrobes, desks, and paperwork. He then searched for a particular piece of paper before finding it and handing it to me.
"Sign here."
The mantis showed me a place on the paper where I was supposed to write my name. But there was only one problem. I did not have a signature, so I knew I had to make one up right this moment. But I also had to remember it for when I needed it later. I was confused.
"Is there a problem, sir, mister?"
the mantis asked.
"It's just that...
What do I write with?" I didn't know. The mantis looked at me with a mix of surprise, confusion, and amusement.
"Are you joking with me, sir, mister?"
"No."
"With your blood, of course. From your appearance, I assume you came from Battlefield. With all due respect, mister, but how do you not know that?"
I felt embarrassed, so I tried to play it off.
No, of course I know that, but, my skin is tough, and usually it's hard for me to scratch it myself without a weapon."
The mantis looked at me, weirded out for a few moments, then said,
"Ah, well, of course. How foolish of me. I apologize."
He put out his right claw and said,
"You can use me, mister."
I hesitated for a few seconds before I made a little scratch on my middle right leg, using the mantis's claw, of course. I then made up a silly-looking signature, which made the mantis rethink about if I were joking or not. I did my best to keep a straight face throughout all of this, trying not to make myself look like a fool. I guess it was convincing enough, as the mantis put the paper away before telling me,
"Well then, follow me, mister, sir. I will show you where your room, where you will be residing in as long as you stay here, is."
"Thank you," I nodded and followed him. After a minute or so, we made it to a door that led to a small room.
"Here you go, mister. The training will start in 3 days. If you need anything, I will be happy to assist you."
"Thank you. I have one question."
"Yes?"
What exactly did they sign, if you don't mind telling me?" I ask. He freezes for a moment before bursting out laughing.
"Well, nothing special, only that. Were you to offend Goddess Mantissa in any way, shape, or form while you're staying here, you are to be executed, mister."
I see. That makes sense. Thank you. That's all.
"Have a nice day, sir."
The mantis smiled and left. I stay still for a few moments, digesting what I've been told. I gotta be very careful, I think to myself before entering my room, shutting down the door behind me. The room was very small. All it had was a bed and a single small wardrobe. But I didn't mind. I was more than grateful to just be here, something that I would never be able to do without Caesar. This is why I decided that the next time I see him, I will try to thank him again. I will try to become his friend. The next 3 days were pretty boring. I spent most of my time walking around the tribe, observing the gorgeous city. When I would get back to the church late at night, I was always greeted by delicious food prepared by one of the cook ladies. I did not see Caesar in those few days, but I did see a few foreign bugs roaming around. I assumed they were warriors we would spar with. And then it came, the day when our training would begin. Good morning, mister. I was greeted in the morning by the same mantis who showed Caesar and me our rooms. Good morning, I answer. I will ask you to follow me, mister, sir. We will go beneath the church, where the gladiator's paradise lays. The what? I ask, in confusion. The gladiator's paradise, of course. A giant arena where all gladiators battle. Gladiators who, just like you and your wasp friend, seek experience, fame, and glory. The mighty ones get what they seek, and the weak, well, go to the paradise. The mantis proudly exclaimed. I see. Let's go then. I was nervous and excited at the same time. After a few minutes of climbing down the long stairs, we made it to the gladiator's paradise. The arena itself was nothing special, just a gigantic round room. What was special, however, were those inside the arena, the so-called gladiators. Powerful warriors from all corners of Castana. It was almost like the ultimate showdown, except there were much less beetles and wasps, no ants, and a lot more mantises and spiders. But the biggest difference was that there was no crowd. Nobody to witness the astonishing brawls. Nobody to cheer for you or against you. Nobody to see you win. Nobody to see you die. As I looked through the warriors in the arena, I noticed Caesar. He also noticed me, so I waved at him, but he quickly looked away, uninterested. I walked towards him, and as soon as I reached him, before I could say anything, a loud, deep, mighty voice said, Welcome, gladiators. 17 of you have gathered here to seek something. Whether it's power, glory, experience, or perhaps you only seek the fun that comes with fighting. Well, whatever it is, I assure you that by the end of the few seasons you spent here, you will have become new, greater, and mightier warriors than you have ever been. A giant, muscular mantis assured us. My name is Claveron. Claveron the Gladiator. I will guide you through your journey here. Now, before I explain what you will be doing, there's something that irritates me. Namely, there are 17 of you, and I really dislike code numbers. So, which one of you is brave enough to go up against me? Claveron asked menacingly. Everyone stood still, as everyone knew that they couldn't take Claveron down. He was huge, and from the way he stood, the way he spoke, as well as from the scars that were all over his body, we all knew that he was a very experienced fighter. Nobody, huh? Claveron was disappointed. Well then, how about we have some stakes? He quickly went outside the arena, and after a few moments he returned, carrying a small Castanean barrel. He threw the barrel on the ground, and it made a loud thud sound. In this barrel there is exactly 300 trao. Defeat me, and you get to keep it. But fail, and you leave the church, no, the tribe, forever. For a few moments nobody said a word, but then a spider started rushing towards Claveron with the intent to kill. I don't know which species of spider it was. All I know is that it was one with poison, with venom. I know this because Claveron was very careful not to get anywhere close to the spider's mouth, from which a transparent liquid was leaking.
Clavaran avoided the spider's attacks without much trouble, and the spider grew more and more furious by the second. It tried shooting Clavaran with some of its silk, but it missed him every time. Clavaran seemed to be enjoying toying with the spider as he smiled for as long as the battle had lasted. But after a few minutes, Clavaran finally decided to attack himself, and with one quick, sharp attack with one of his claws, he completely cut off one of the spider's legs. The spider screamed, as the pain was unbearable. Clavaran then proceeded to put his claws beneath the spider, then he raised them both at incredible speed, throwing the spider all the way to the other side of the arena. The spider hit his head on the wall, and as dizzy as that hit made it be, the spider ran out of the arena and most likely out of the Montesian tribe too. Good. Great even. This means two things. One, now there's an even number of you, which I like. And two, you've just witnessed what greed, carelessness, and lack of experience, the inability to read your opponent does to you. Now, let me explain the kind of training you will go through here. First of all, you will work in pairs. That's another reason why I love even numbers. They can always be split into pairs. Beautiful. I will assign your pair after I explain how things work here. Listen closely, as I will not be repeating myself, nor will I answer any further questions. Mainly, this training consists of three things. The first one is sparring with your partner, learning to work together, learning your weaknesses and learning to utilize both your abilities in combat. You will be sparring each and every day for the next 2 seasons. I will personally be observing each one of you for the first season, correcting your mistakes and giving you advices on where you or your partner could improve. These sparring sessions can last anywhere between a few minutes to a few hours, depending on how good both of you are or how bad both of you are at working together and against one another. The second thing is resting and eating well. During the sparring seasons, you will need to eat well, as to maintain your strength throughout 2 seasons of consistent training. After the 2 seasons of training with each other are over, you'll have a full week of resting, where none of you are permitted to fight. Those who defy this will be sent home. Resting is very important, as you preserve your energy for the third thing, the final test, which consists of 2 battles. The first one you will have with another pair of gladiators, and the second battle is held after another week of resting. And the second battle is between the victorious pairs of gladiators, going up against none other than myself. Those who, at the end of this training, are able to defeat me can truly go home calling themselves exceptional gladiators, or excellent warriors, whichever title you prefer. Now then, for the pairs. He looked around and started picking 2 bugs at a time. After he picked 4 pairs, he pointed at me. You, the dung beetle, what is your name? He asked me. Dan, sir, I answered confidently. Well, Dan, your pair, let's see. He tilted his head as he looked at the uninterested Caesar. A Cicada wasp and a dung beetle. What a wild combo that would be. He pointed at Caesar, who widened his eyes. Cicada, you are Dan's partner. Yes! I couldn't keep my excitement, as this meant that I was surely bound to achieve my goal of becoming Caesar's friend, right? But Caesar reacted in another way to this news. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me! Clavaran paired up the rest of the bugs, then informed each of us the time at which we were supposed to be in the arena, to start sparring tomorrow. Each pair was assigned a different time. That was, as Clavaran explained, done for 2 reasons. 1. This way Clavaran would be able to focus on each pair individually, giving personalized advices to everyone. And 2. This way no other pair would know your pair's strategy, your pair's tactics. Thus, when the final test arrived, nobody would know their opponent's strategies. And so we were dismissed, and I couldn't wait for tomorrow. I was excited. Tomorrow came, and I was awaiting Caesar for our turn. Just as I thought he was about to be late, he made it just in time. And without saying hi or even looking at me, he entered the underground arena. I silently followed. Good job today. For your first time, I am beyond impressed. We could hear Clavaran telling the pair that was sparring before us. See you tomorrow, Unguis. A beautiful female mantis waved at her partner, a budwing mantis named Unguis. See you, Minail. Unguis smiled as he too left the arena. Well then. Clavaran looked at us as soon as the two budwing mantises disappeared. Then the dang beetle and Caesar, the Sisada wasp, right? Before we could answer, he added, Well, are you ready? Fight. Fight with an intent to kill each other. Now. Clavaran's expression changed as those words left his mouth. Before I had any time to process them, Caesar had already started to fly upwards. He quickly and swiftly flipped in the air, then started rushing towards me, his sting pointing directly at my head. And, with barely a nanosecond to spare, I managed to avoid his deadly sting by tilting my head just enough for him to miss. I instinctively turned around as fast as I could, grabbing Caesar by the very same deadly sting that was now helplessly in my deadly grip. Damn! Caesar yelled as he realized the velocity of his mistake. He helplessly tried to take off in the air. He tried to make me let go of him by flipping his wings at me as sharp and as fast as he could, but the grip of a dung beetle is undefeatable. I then proceeded to use Caesar's body as a hammer, hitting him in the floor and on the arena's walls multiple times, using all the power that I had in me. After 4 or 5 hits, I threw him all the way to the other side of the arena. But instead of falling on the ground unconscious, as many others would after receiving so many heavy hits like that, Caesar immediately flew up. What surprised me even more was that he spent next to no time resting. He attacked me again in the same exact way. I dodged it again, but I felt like this was some kind of a trap, so instead of trying to catch his sting like before, I instead avoided interacting with Caesar in this moment. And I was right, as not even a second after I moved, Caesar flipped in the air, stabbing the ground beneath him. The very ground that I was standing on less than a second prior. Stop! Clavaran yelled. Neither Caesar nor I expected our sparring to be cut short like this, so we both looked at Clavaran in frustration and confusion. Excellent! I am very satisfied with both of you. Then, you did great managing to handle both of Caesar's attacks. You even predicted his well set but poorly executed trap. And Caesar, I am impressed by your speed and endurance. Not gonna lie, I expected you to fall flat after Den's merciless strikes. You both did great for your first time. But, Caesar, you rushed into this too quickly, even for my standards. And going for the same attack twice, even with an ace in your wings, is a bold move. And one last thing, Sisada wasps are known for their poison, right? So your opponent is well aware that he needs to avoid your deadly sting by any means necessary. So next time, do not use your trump card as your very first attack. It may have worked for weak or unexperienced fighters, but an exceptional warrior will turn that kind of an opening into his advantage. And then, when I said now, you did not quite seem to catch it. You looked confused, while Caesar reacted immediately. In any real fight, even a nanosecond of delay can cause your death, let alone multiple seconds like you did just now. Other than that, you did good. I suggest both of you to go to your rooms. Think about this short but valuable fight. Think about what I said, and most importantly, think about how to improve. Caesar, Work on your strategic thinking. Think of a few new attacks that you would try to kill your friend here with in the following weeks. And then work on your reflexes, reaction time. Think of ways you can train and work on those in your isolated room. That is it. You are both dismissed. Clavaran was clear and on the point. Caesar looked at me, frowning and whispering, "Next time." He left, and I followed shortly after. I spent the next few hours doing what Clavaran told me to do, thinking about any ways to train my reflexes and reaction time in this tiny room. But I could think of none. No matter how hard I tried, no solutions came to my mind. Frustrated and angry with myself, I ate the dinner a mantis cook served me. Then I lay down. And I fall asleep quickly. That night I dreamed of the fight many, many times, over and over again. The next morning, I went to the arena a bit earlier than before. I just couldn't wait for today's sparring. When I came close to the arena's entrance, I could hear Clavaran talking with Unguis and Minael. "I don't have much to add from yesterday. Both of you did well on trying to improve on the things I have told you. Minael, I noticed that you tried using the improved battle stance I showed you. It's still not quite there yet, but you'll learn how to do it eventually. Keep it up." "Thank you," I heard the female mantis reply, happy with the praise. "And Unguis, you're trying to focus on the speed of your attacks, just like I suggested. It's very important for you to continue doing it like this in the following weeks. And remember, do not lose focus," Clavaran said. "Yes, I understand. Thank you," the male Budwig mantis replied with respect. "Well, you are dismissed." As soon as I heard Clavaran say that, I decided to enter the arena. The two Budwig mantises went right past me, and as they did, I heard Unguis say to Minael, "Been a good one today. Let's do even better tomorrow." Minael blushed and nodded her head, and the two mantises left the arena. "Ah, then, did you do what I suggested?" Clavaran asked. I tried to think of a way, but nothing came to mind. I felt disappointed in myself, admitting that, especially when I heard how well the mantis pair was already doing. "Oh, I see." Clavaran was silent for a few moments before adding, "Well, I'm not going to tell you how. You'll have to figure it out on your own. On the battlefield, nobody will be telling you which moves to make, right?" As soon as he said that, Caesar suddenly appeared in the arena. "Caesar! Great! Begin!" Clavaran ordered so unexpectedly, yet Caesar was so fast to strike again, as he was the day before. This time he immediately started flying directly at me without pointing his sting at me. We were about to collide when he rapidly raised his sting. The sting scratched my chest, but I succeeded in catching it with two of my legs before it could stab through it. But Caesar did not stop. He was trying to push through my impenetrable grip. For about half a minute or so, Caesar kept pushing with all the might he had, while I held on his sting as tightly as I could. After that, Caesar changed his strategy of pulling. He was trying to pull his sting away from my grip. He was trying to get away. I was not fully ready for this sudden change, which just further showed my slow reflexes. So the sting almost slipped away from my legs. Almost. I somehow managed to catch it with two more of my legs before it could fully slip away. Thus, I was still in control of the situation. Then something clicked. I had an idea. I started dashing towards the arena wall, while pushing Caesar and pointing my horn at his chest. "Damn it!" Caesar yelled, and I could hear the panic in his voice. Just as I was about to hit the wall and stab Caesar in the chest, I tilted my head so that I don't actually kill or wound Caesar. So instead of piercing through Caesar, I pierced through the arena wall, as I let go of Caesar, who was pressed with his back to the wall. "Stop!" Clavaran sharply yelled. Dan, what the hell was that? I looked at Clavaran in confusion. Well, I stuttered as I tried to explain myself. If I was to end the attack as I intended, Caesar would be dead. I would pierce right through his chest and... Didn't I tell you to attack with an intent to kill? If Caesar was unable to get out of the trap he set himself up to, he's not suited for this, Clavaran suddenly exclaimed. I can't kill my sparring partner, I started, but Clavaran stopped me. Of course you can. Didn't you see that Caesar was trying to do that all along? Wasn't I clear about you going at each other all out? Caesar clearly understood me. But you did not then. I am disappointed in both of you. You are dismissed, Clavaran said, and he left the arena. I was left speechless, confused. Clavaran's words hurt me for some reason. I just couldn't kill Caesar. Just couldn't kill him like that all of a sudden. I know that he didn't really like me, but I wouldn't be here without him. I looked at Caesar, who was looking at me with anger and tears in his eyes. Damn you, he said. You should have stabbed me. Damn it. No, I replied. This made him shake his wings in fury. Our mentor is right. If I can't even beat someone like you, if someone like you can put me in such a position, if you are able to beat me, to kill me so easily, then I am not suited for this. He then flew towards the arena exit, but before he left he added, The next time you have a chance, kill me. Caesar left too, and so I was left alone in the arena for a few minutes, alone trying to process all of this. That night, I needed to calm myself down. I was angry. I was so angry at Clavaran for some reason. And in my anger, I did something. I threw the small wardrobe at the ceiling. As it hit the ceiling, it broke into 100 tiny pieces, all of which started falling rapidly downwards. At that moment, I felt something. A rush of adrenaline. I felt like I had to avoid them, all of them. As dozens of small pieces of broken wardrobe fell towards me, I tried to avoid them. I had to, but I only managed to avoid about half of them. As the room was so tiny, my movement was so limited. But that was it. I knew that was it. This was the way I'll work my reflexes and my reaction time. So for the next few hours, I collected the few dozen pieces of the broken wardrobe, threw them at the ceiling, and then tried to avoid every single one. I did this until I fell asleep from exhaustion. The next day I overslept a bit, so I was late for my sparring session. When I finally came down to the arena, Clavaran just looked at me and said a single word. No. And so Caesar attacked, the same way he did yesterday, except more aggressive. Caesar came very close to scratching me again, but this time he did not succeed, as I had expected this, but because of the familiar attack and because of my last night's training. That being said, Caesar did change his strategy for today a bit. Namely, he started pulling his sting immediately, as he knew that he could not push through my grip. I did not see this coming, so Caesar successfully pulled his sting away and flew upwards. This was another sign that I had a long way to go if I wanted to master my reaction time. Caesar now struck from behind me, pointing his sting directly at my head, like he did on the day one of our training. I ducked a millisecond before impact, so Caesar just barely missed me. This made him vulnerable, as now it was him whose back was turned to his opponent. I quickly dashed at him, catching him by his wings so that he couldn't get away. I pinned him down to the arena wall and pointed my horn at his back, at a spot where I could split him in half if I stabbed him. He was powerless to escape. Once again, I held him at a position where I could easily kill him. but I once again let go of him, and the battle was over. Clavaran just shook his head in disappointment and left. Caesar once again looked at me with anger, tears, and confusion in his eyes. Why? Why? He yelled and left the arena. The next few weeks went on like this. Caesar and I would brawl, and every day we would get further and further in our battle, but each time it would end with me being in a position to kill Caesar. I would let him go, then Clavaran would leave the arena in silence. The first few days, Caesar would be asking me why, as I spared him every time, but I would just ignore him. After those initial few days, Caesar would stop asking me why every time I spared him, and would instead stay silent. I would come back to my room, I would eat whatever the Mantis cooks brought me that day, and then I would train until I pass out of exhaustion. It was day 20 of our training, or should I say it was supposed to be day 20 of our training, because when I came down to the arena, Caesar was nowhere to be seen. Clavaran explained to me that Caesar told him that he fell ill, so he wanted to skip sparring for today. I found this very weird, as Caesar seemed to be fine the day before, so I left the arena and decided to go to Caesar's room to see what was up. On my way there, I saw the two Budwig mantises, Unguis and Minael, kissing. And for some reason it made me think of Lucana. It made me remember my foolishness. This was the first time I thought of her since I came to the tribe, and from this day on, I thought about her every single night. I don't know why, but I just wanted to see her again. I wanted to talk to her again. I wanted us to be kissing like the Budwig pair. When I made it to Caesar's room, I knocked, but nobody answered. I waited a few seconds before asking, "Caesar, it's me, Dan. Can I come in?" No response. I asked again, yet I was met with silence again. I waited a little more before deciding to enter anyway. And I saw Caesar sitting there on his bed, crying. Hey, what's wrong?" I asked, concerned. He looked at me, confused. I realized that since our training had started, this was our first time talking to each other outside the arena. I closed the doors and sat next to him, comforting him. "Tell me what's wrong, buddy." "Then," he said through his tears. After hesitating for a minute or two, he asked, "Why do you spare me? Why do you spare me every time when you know we should be trying to kill each other? When you know that I am trying to kill you?" At first it made me angry, frustrated. I thought that you were showing me pity, and I hated you for that. But then you kept on doing it, and every time you did it, I felt that you did not do it because of pity. You did not do it because you considered me weak. But then, why? Why do you do it? I could hear the enormous confusion he was feeling. Confusion that has been building up in him since we started training 20 days ago. I do it because you don't deserve to die in a place like this, where nobody will ever remember you. I do it because I can see the potential both of us have. We'll achieve great things, but we can't do it if we die here. I know that you see it too. The improvements we make every single day, I tried to explain. Oi! He was silent for a few moments. Why did you come here? I mean, why did you want to check on me? I could see that it was hard for him to say these words. There were long pauses between every word, and I saw more tears forming in his orange eyes.
It's simple, Caesar. Because you are my friend, I answer. Friend? He mumbled and looked at me in the eyes. Friend, he whispered. Then he proceeded to hug me. Thank you, then, he whispered to me when he let go. Thank you and sorry. Hey, let's do better tomorrow, I told him and smiled. Yes, he smiled back. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, I said, and exited his room. Mission accomplished, I think to myself, happy that I finally became Caesar's friend. From the following day onwards, our training has changed. We would spar like usual, but this time our flow would be different. Now neither Caesar nor I attacked with an intent to kill. Instead, both of us attacked with an intent to learn from one another. Clavaran clearly noticed this change as, while he was still being silent for the most part, he stopped leaving the arena as soon as we finished fighting. He would observe us. He would observe our improvements in silence. After the sparring, Caesar and I would spend an hour or two every day going for a walk around the tribe. We didn't talk much, but we spent time together. We spent time together and I felt happy. Happier than I ever was before, really. After that, we would go back to our rooms and eat and train for the following day. I would start training with my eyes closed now, as I could easily avoid every single piece of wardrobe when my eyes were open. After hours of training, I would fall asleep, but every time before my mind drifted to the lands of dreams, a certain girl would show up in my head, a girl I hadn't seen for a long time. It was day 30 of our training, the final day of Clavaran's presence. Ever since day 3, he did not speak a word to us, but I knew that today he would have to say something, anything, to us. And this fact made me nervous. By this time, I have almost mastered dodging the broken wardrobe pieces with my eyes closed, so compared to day 1, I had improved a ton. And so did Caesar, who always surprised me with new attacks and strategies. Though by this point, he didn't have a single victory over me. But unlike the Caesar at the start of our training, the present Caesar did not see losing to me as a failure, but rather as an opportunity for further improvement. And improve he has, as I found it harder and harder to pin him down and gain a win over him. And our sparring, which have started as short fights that lasted less than a couple of minutes, were now becoming longer and longer, to the point where our record was fighting for 47 minutes. I was looking forward to breaking that record. Nervously, I go down to the arena. Yo! I hear a familiar voice calling me as I near the arena entrance. Hi! I wave at Caesar, who was waiting for me there. Come see this then. They're almost done, he tells me, pointing at the mantis pair who were sparring with each other. So I stood there, watching Ungois and Minael fight each other. But it did not look like they were just fighting. It looked like they were dancing. Their movement was like flowers going left and right when a mild wind blows. When Minael would tilt left, Unguis would tilt right, and every couple of seconds their claws would clash so fast that I could barely catch it with my eyes. Their coordinated movements looked like a weird choreographic show. Every time their claws would hit one another, you could hear the noise, one that sounded like a high-pitched short whistle. Both Caesar and I had to admit that it was beautiful. They were doing this for the past hour or so, Caesar explained. Were you there from the beginning? I asked. Yes, I wanted to see how their training looked like. We have to face a mantis for our final test, Clavaran, and who knows, maybe we'll face mantises as opponents for the fight before our clash with Clavaran.
Caesar wisely explained. I see. You're right. Just as we finished our chit-chat, the two mantises finished their duel. Unguis suddenly moved backwards, avoiding Minel's strike instead of blocking it. When he did so, he used the moment of advantage he had on Minel to grab her other claw, pulling her towards him. Unguis put his right claw around Minel's neck, saying, I win today, it seems. Huh, I guess so, she said as he let her go. Good. Very good. I have nothing to add. You've exceeded my expectations. Clavaron sounded proud of both them and himself. Thank you, the Budwing pair said at the same time, bowing to their mentor. You're dismissed. Continue doing like this and you're going to get far, Clavaron said, and the pair left the arena. When they did so, Caesar and I entered. Clavaron was once again silent. I look at Caesar. He nods. It was time to fight. I charged at him, pointing my horn at his head, but he flew upwards before I could get too close to him. He spun in the air for a few times. He really liked doing that, and started flying around me in circles. This was his usual start to the fight. Flying in circles as fast as he could for a few minutes, confusing the opponent about both his location and his next attack. I knew this was going to last for a bit, so I started preparing my own surprise, something that I had never used in any of the previous brawls with Caesar. I spat on my top and middle legs, then I started making a sphere, a ball out of the dust, mud and blood from the arena floor. I knew that Caesar was too focused on doing his usual distraction to notice this. After a minute or so, I finished making it. Then I made another one, then two more, and finally I was ready. Using 4 of my legs, I threw 4 spheres as fast and mighty as I could in 4 different directions. One of them was bound to hit, or at least scratch Caesar. And at the speed that he was flying at, even touching such a projectile mid-air would cause him to lose balance, and that's exactly what happened. One of the 4 balls scratched unsuspecting Caesar, who lost his balance, flying directly at the arena wall. My plan worked. I turned one of Caesar's strategies against him. But it was way too early to even think of celebrating, as the battle had just started. Caesar quickly adapted. He crawled up the wall he hit, positioning himself in a more favorable spot. He checked to see where I am, and saw me just when I was about to finish making another one of my dunk balls. I threw the ball at Caesar at incredible speed, but Caesar's speed was even more incredible. He avoided the ball with ease, then he continued flying straight. I knew that it was coming, one of his sting attacks, or that's what I thought. Caesar did not attack me with his sting. Instead, he charged at me at full speed, catching my horn with 4 of his legs and, for the first time ever, pinning me down. I was at the floor with Caesar on top of me. The buzzing of his loud wings irritated me, and I knew that the battle would be over quickly if I didn't think of something. Caesar tried to stab me, but I started holding his sting with my 2 middle legs, while trying to push him down away from me with my top legs. I tried to push and push and push, but to no avail, and while Caesar could not manage to pierce me, I could not manage to get him off me. We were stuck in a stalemate, I thought, but not for long. I let my right legs go of Caesar and his sting, and then I punched the ground with them, as strongly as I could. The impact of the hit pushed the 2 of us just enough for me to be able to turn the tables, to spin around and get myself on top of Caesar. Ha ha ha! I laughed, as once again I turned Caesar's attack into my advantage. No! He yelled and started buzzing his wings, due to which his whole body and thus mine too were vibrating. This made it hard for me to hold him pinned down to the ground, especially because my head was spinning a bit from, well, all the spinning. Caesar kept struggling on the ground and I kept trying to pin him down. Sorry then, he said, then he spat on my face. Ah! I screamed, rubbing my eyes with one of my legs. Letting even one leg go of Caesar was a mistake.
because it was just enough for Caesar to be able to barely have the strength to push me off of him. He quickly flew away from the spot he was lying in. I got up from the ground just in time to see his sting come dangerously close to my eyes. I reflexively nodded my head, deflecting his sting with my horn. Caesar pulled back, and we stared at each other for a few moments, enjoying the small break. I smiled. Caesar smiled back. We rapidly dashed towards each other, and my horn and his sting collided again, and again, then again, then again. And Caesar kept trying to stab me, and I kept using my horn to defend myself. It was a very weird fencing match. After a bit, I decided that I had had enough. I was going to end it. End this brawl. So when Caesar tried to stab me the next time, instead of deflecting his sting, I tried to catch it. Little did I know that this was exactly what Caesar wanted. As soon as he saw that I wasn't going to deflect, he pulled his sting slightly higher than it was. And this small irregularity was enough for me to have to stretch more in order to catch his sting. After all, I couldn't afford to miss a chance to catch it. Our brawls always ended when my unbreakable grip got a hold of Caesar's cramp card. So I stretched, and I succeeded in catching the sting, but because I stretched further than I wanted, it left me a little bit vulnerable. One little push would be enough to throw me to the ground, and that's exactly what Caesar did. He kept on flying forward even after I caught his sting. This was enough for me to trip and fall to the ground on my back. When my back hit the ground below me, I made a grand mistake. For a single moment, I loosened my grip on Caesar's sting. This single moment was enough for Caesar to pull it away. After that, the battle had been decided. Caesar stabbed the spot on the ground that was millimeters away from my head. Not because I miraculously managed to avoid it, but because he missed on purpose. This time, he was the one sparing me. Yes! Caesar screamed, joyful that he has finally, for once, won. You bested me, all right, I said. I was also happy. I was happy to see Caesar happy. We heard clapping behind us. It was Clavaran. Congratulations, he said. I am impressed. I can't bring myself to believe that someone could improve as much as the two of you have improved, without almost any guidance at all. Yet, I have to, because I've just witnessed it. Congratulations. My presence here is no longer needed, Clavaran said with pride in his voice. For the next 30 days, keep on training. Try to make up some team attacks, as you will need them for the final test. Other than that, I wish you good luck, Dan and Caesar. Clavaran bowed to us before turning around and exiting the arena. I looked at Caesar. He looked at me. And we had the same thing on our minds. We threw two high ones at each other, one with our top and one with our middle legs. We held on like that, grinning for a good few moments. At the moment, I had felt the bond between us, the bond that went beyond simple friendship. The hardships we went through, the training, the battles, the walks through the tribe afterwards, it all contributed to what I was feeling now. We were more than friends, we were family, we were brothers. The next season went by quickly. Caesar and I were training per usual, except now we were also making strategies for when we go up against another pair of bugs in the final test. And ultimately plans for going up against Clavaran himself at the very end. And so when the 30 days passed, Clavaran told all of us to come in the arena. Before I say anything else, I first want to say, bravo! All of you entered this arena with next to no knowledge of how to fight. And look at you now. All of you have become incredible warriors. Those who I would call worthy opponents. So now, the final test.
The pure mention of it made everyone there, all 8 pairs, nervous. I have already decided who will go against who, but you will not know your opponents until you set your legs in the arena. But before the test, as you all know, first you need to spend 7 days resting, thinking, meditating, collecting energy, or simply just walking throughout our beautiful tribe. I don't care how you spend the next week, as long as you do not fight or train. Remember that resting is just as important as training itself. That is all. You are all dismissed. After the speech, everyone left. And everyone was excited about what was to come. Caesar and I spent the next 7 days as we were told, resting, strategizing, and walking around the tribe. We made numerous strategies for numerous different opponents that we could be facing. Needless to say, we were ready. More than ready. We were ready and we couldn't wait. And so, the day finally came. Clavaron told Caesar and I the time when we were supposed to be in the arena, and we were not permitted to be there earlier. So Caesar and I waited, and while we did, we went through all our different strategies once again. After a few hours, that was it. We went down to the arena. We looked at each other, counted to 3, then at the same time, we went inside. Inside the arena were 3 bugs, Clavaron, who was there to spectate the fight, and the other 2 were our opponents, the Badwing Mantis pair, Unguis and Minael. Caesar, done. Unguis, Minael. You will now face each other. Show no mercy to one another. Fight. Fight with an intent to win. The pair who ends victorious will advance to the last challenge, facing me. Well, I have nothing else to add, so begin. Clavaron's resonant voice marked the beginning of the fight. As soon as we heard those words, Caesar and I got to our battle stances. I tilted my head downwards, standing on all 6 of my legs, while he quickly flew upwards and stood on one of the arena walls, awaiting to strike when the time was right. But Unguis and Minael were just as quick. Unguis went right, while Minael went left. They both spread their claws and their wings. It was the dancing stance, as Caesar liked to call it. The same stance they used while training with Clavaron. They slowly moved their claws and upper bodies left and right, left and right. They were carefully observing us, expecting us to strike first. Unguis was looking at Caesar while Minael was watching me. Little did they know, this was exactly what we had hoped for. I dashed as quickly as I could towards Minael, pointing my horn at her. At the same time, Caesar locked his eyes with Unguis, knowing that the male mantis would likely be distracted by my attack on his beloved. And distracted he was, as he almost immediately froze his body, moving his eyes in my direction as I was getting closer and closer to Minael. Caesar espied Unguis's eyes moving away from his position, so he swiftly shifted towards the distracted mantis, making a buzzing sound and pointing his deadly sting at him. Minael, who was focusing on deflecting my upcoming attack, heard the buzzing sounds, which made her look towards its source. Caesar. "Unguis, watch out!" she shrieked, distracted. "Ah!" She let out a painful cough as my horn stabbed her through one of her wings. "No!" Unguis screamed, completely letting his guard down, pointing one of his claws towards the now wounded Minael, who was writhing in agony on the arena floor. I pulled my horn out of Minael's body, just in time to see a terrifying scene, a scene that showed me the cruelty that life can have. Minael looked towards Unguis with tears in her eyes, and at that exact moment, Caesar's sting pierced right through Unguis's head. The speed at which Caesar's sting collided with Unguis was so rapid that Caesar didn't even have to use poison. Unguis's head just fell right off. No! Minel let out a most agonizing cry. Unguis's soulless body stood there, pointing towards Minel. It stood there for a couple of seconds before slowly falling to the ground. Unguis! Minel was holding her wounds as she cried on the ground. And I just stood there, looking at her, looking at Unguis. I stood there wondering, was this all necessary? Did we really have to do this? I looked at my top legs. There was blood on them. Minel's blood that dripped from my horn. I felt Minel catching one of my other legs with her claw. She did not try to cut it. She just held it to draw my attention. I looked her in the eyes, those sad eyes filled with pain. Kill me! Kill me! Kill me! She cried out. Kill me! Kill me! Kill me! She kept begging me to kill her. I just stood there, shaking uncontrollably, unable to move, unable to do anything. Suddenly, Caesar's sting stung Minel's chest, releasing the deadly poison inside Minel's body. Caesar, no! I yelled, shocked at the sudden cruelty of my friend. We could hear Minel struggling, her blood turning dark orange as the Sisada poison was melting her insides. I'll see you in hell, were Minel's final words. She was left lying on the ground, orange liquid flowing from her mouth and her wounds. She was dead. She was with Unguis once again. Caesar. I could barely let out a whisper. Caesar just looked at me, expressionless, emotionless. I did not understand. I was so confused at that moment. And before I could say anything, ask anything, process anything, the sound of two claws clapping filled the now silent arena. Well done, Caesar. Well done, indeed, Claveron said. Caesar bowed, and the mantis continued. To think that you are the same wasp that couldn't even come close to winning a single battle, not even against your own partner. And now look at you. You showed no mercy. You carried the battle. You did excellent. Thank you, Caesar simply replied, and bowed to the mantis. Claveron then looked at me. And you? A few uncomfortable moments of silence followed before Claveron finished. I expected more of you. But you won either way, so congratulations, I guess. See you in a week. Claveron left the arena. Caesar looked at me. I was still shaken from all of this. This was not what I imagined a real battle would look like. Caesar still looked cold, emotionless, cruel. He was quick to fly out of the arena, and I was left standing there alone for a few minutes. A couple of flower mantises entered the arena to clean up the mess that was left after the battle. When they saw me, one of them approached me saying, "You should leave." So I listened. I left. I left the arena, and I left the church. I spent the next few days just wandering around the tribe. I didn't eat anything at this time. I was just spending time mindlessly. A couple of days later, Caesar found me. He found me sitting on a random bench in the center of the city. He approached me. "Hey, man." I didn't answer. I didn't even have the courage to look at him after what happened. I know what I did was cruel, and I saw how shaken you were by all of it. I'm not here to convince you to come back. I am here to say that I am sorry. I'm sorry that you had to see that. But that is the path we chose, the path of a warrior. I won't blame you if you can't handle it. I won't blame you if you quit. But I don't know what you expected, really. We know what we were getting into when we entered that church. We knew that at one point we would have to fight other bugs till death. I still sat in silence, but I was listening to him. I was listening to Caesar, and he was right. This was all my choice. This was what I wanted. And this was only the beginning. I would still have to go through many battles just like this one, even worse than this one. If I were to continue the path that I have chosen, if I were to continue my family's legacy. Listen, Caesar touched my back. I will fight Claveron tomorrow, with or without you. It is up to you. But I want you to know that whatever you choose, I will not get mad at you. And, well, if we don't see each other again, I want you to know that I wish you to find success. Success and peace in life, then. Caesar let go of me, and was about to leave when I stopped him. Caesar, wait! I finally said something. He sat back down and listened. You're right. This is the path I have chosen. This is the path we have chosen. I was looking down as I spoke this. It is a cruel and painful path. But I will continue it. I will continue my family's legacy. We. I look Caesar in the eyes and I finish my sentence. We will become the greatest warriors, the greatest heroes Castana has ever seen. We will become the next great knights. Caesar nodded and smiled as he said, Now that's the spirit. I then noticed something. Something was off with Caesar's eyes. They were swollen, darker. They showed me that Caesar, he was crying in secret, a lot, during the past week. I noticed it, but I didn't mention it to him. I know that Caesar wouldn't like talking about it. Let's go then. Come on. You look like you hadn't eaten in a while. Let's get your strength back for tomorrow. Caesar cheered me up. I smiled. Together we went back to the church. When we came back, the first thing we did was eat, of course. We ate a ton, so that we were full of energy for the upcoming final battle that was awaiting us tomorrow. After that, we quickly went over the strategies that we have prepared for Claveron. We were ready. We went to sleep and the day arrived. The day of the final battle we would have in the gladiator's paradise. I met Caesar at the arena's entrance. I look at him and say, You ready? He grins and replies, I've never been more ready for anything. And with this, we enter paradise. As soon as we do, Claveron looks at our directions and says, There you are. Well, good luck. The moment those words left his mouth, the giant mantis started flying towards Caesar and I at an astonishing speed. His sharp claws rotated around 90 degrees towards each other, crossing with one another mid-air, making a scissors-shaped death stance. I look at Caesar, but he has already escaped towards the sky, and when I look back at Claveron, I see that he hasn't changed his direction nor the speed at which he was coming towards me. I had little time to react, which once again showed that I still lacked reaction time. Since I didn't have the time to move away, the only option was to take the hit. The only question was, how? I decided that my best bet was my horn, so I pointed it at Claveron, just in time for his claws to catch it, instead of, let's say, one of my legs, which would have been cut off instantly by his attack. Brave, he mutters. as I see him struggle to cut off my horn with his scissors. The young Antonio interrupted the crippled knight's tale. Yes, Dan was irritated that he had to pause in the middle of describing a grand fight. What are scissors? Antonio could not hide his curiosity. Oh, right, you're a young one. I assume you had never left Anthill until now, correct? Dan showed understanding. Yes, Antonio was a little ashamed to admit. It's a weapon, Nathan jumped in. A weapon? Antonio was intrigued. He had never heard of such a weirdly named weapon before. Yeah, a unique and powerful weapon that mimics those sharp claws mantis folks have. Hercules was excited to join in too. Wow, sounds like a much cooler and much more useful weapon than a simple spear or a blade, Antonio commented. Yes, but unfortunately, the only material sharp and enduring enough to produce it are Ozara's feathers, and well, you already know how rare and valuable those are, the knight explained. I see. Antonio looked at his blade for a few moments before adding, Thank you. And sorry for the interruption, he apologized. Dan nodded before resuming his tale. Now, where was I? Yes, so I stand there, feeling his claws struggling to cut my horn off. Seeing those sharp things so close to my head made me nervous, but I know that I still had to hold on. Caesar, in the meantime, was flying around us, looking at the best opening to attack. After a few moments, I saw the grin on Caesar's face as he rushed downwards, aiming at Clavarens's back. Damn, I can hear you, you know. Clavaron let me go and swiftly turned around, just in time to block Caesar's pointy sting with his claws. I could hear how nervous Clavaron was too, considering that he was now cornered. By blocking Caesar's poisonous sting, he turned his back to me, leaving him open for me to attack him from behind. So I quickly swung my hand left to right, scratching his wings with my horn. Damn! His body jerked in pain, and Caesar used this moment to rise up again, escaping the possible counterattack that Clavaron could have followed up with. Clavaron then stood on his upper legs, kicking me with his two rear legs right in the stomach. This made me take a few steps back to regain my balance, and Clavaron used this to turn to face me. But this time, instead of a scissor attack, he decided to go with a more traditional slashing motion. His Scalaritor's right claw struck diagonally, leaving a long scrape on my chest and stomach. Arr! I closed my eyes for a second as the pain hit me, but the wound hurt, yet not nearly as much as I expected it to. I heard the buzzing of Caesar's wings, so I knew that he was keeping Clavaron busy while I recover. I looked at my wound. It was long, but not deep. Not deep at all. It was bleeding, but very little. This was a good sign. This meant that Clavaron either deliberately missed, or I just happened to be at a safe distance so that his attack did less damage than he intended. Either way, it doesn't matter. What mattered was that I could still fight. I looked at Caesar. He was flying in circles around Clavaron, closing in on him from time to time, then quickly retreating before Clavaron could hit him or catch him. Caesar! I let him know that I recovered. He glances at me for a moment before looking back at Clavaron. Do it! He yells, and I listen to him. I knew what he meant by that. It was time for us to finish this. It was time for our final strike. A strike that we could only hit Clavaron with once two things were set up. First, Clavaron had to be in a position where he couldn't fly, even if he wanted to, and I made sure his wings were in no shape to lift him when I scratched them with my horn. Second, I had to be in a position from which I could catch him by one of his claws. I had to catch it and hold it still no matter what. That's what Caesar meant by do it. So I ran towards Claveron, who was too occupied with Caesar to notice me, and as soon as I got close to him, I caught his left claw with 4 of my legs. He was still observing Caesar, blocking him with his right claw, while trying his hardest to get rid of my grip. But to no avail. "Let go!" He tried to shake me off, but my incredible grip was too tight, too strong. No matter how hard he tried, I did not let go. "Damn it!" He looked at me for a few seconds, then glanced at Caesar to see if he would attack him. Then he looked at me for another few seconds before glancing at Caesar again. He knew that he was cornered. "So be it," he whispered to himself as he lifted his right claw, aiming to cut me with it. But as soon as he lifted it, before he could even begin to attack, Caesar stabbed right through his right claw, injecting his venom inside Claveron's body. "Damn!" His body jerked in pain. Once again, I let go of his left claw. As soon as my grip got loosened, Claveron caught himself by his right shoulder and he cut off his own claw. His right claw fell to the ground beneath him, bright orange blood spilling from the place where Caesar stung him, as well as the place where the swift cut was made. Claveron looked defeated as green blood dripped from the place where his right claw used to be. "Congratulations," he slowly said. "You have bested me." He then did something that I will remember for the rest of my life. He bowed to us. Not me, not to Caesar, but to the two of us. "It was an honor fighting you," he added, before exiting the gladiator's paradise, leaving Caesar and I alone. Well, alone with his right claw. We looked at each other. Caesar came down to the ground, standing above the claw. He was observing it for a few moments before looking back at me, saying, Did we really do it?" I think so, yeah," I smiled. "We won, Caesar. We won." I could see a smile forming on his face. He looked at his legs and at his sting. "So this is what victory feels like. This is what defeating a strong opponent feels like." He started shaking. It feels incredible." He looked at me again, saying, "Then, promise me something." "Promise you what?" I was curious. "Promise me that we will feel this again, then. Promise me that we will win the showdown, that we will become great knights, so that we can face the strongest opponent of them all, so that we can defeat the Grand Menace." Before I could reply, he looked at the ceiling, saying, "I want to know. I want to feel it then. The feeling that we will get after defeating it. It must be the greatest feeling of joy a warrior can feel." He looked at me again, expecting an answer. I grinned as the words left my mouth. "Caesar, I promise. The two of us will become the greatest knights the Castanean kingdom has ever seen." I woke up to him once again. We gave each other high ones, one with our top and one with our middle legs. Once again, I feel our bond, a bond that two warriors can only build by spending seasons fighting together, training together, and defeating strong opponents together. I feel immeasurable joy in this precious moment. I would give anything to be able to go back to that moment, to that time in the past. The time when Castana was at its strongest, when Caesar was still recognizable. Back when I still had my best friend. Back when I still had my brother. We spent the next few seasons at the church, recovering from the fights and planning on where to go next, what to do next. The showdown was about 3 seasons away, and Caesar and I decided to spend the next 2.5 seasons training and traveling, visiting places that we've never been in, while the final 2 weeks before the showdown we would spend in Beetlefield. During this time, the two of us got to know each other better, and our bond became even stronger. During our travels, there were actually 2 places that we did not visit: the Web Pit and the Kingdom of Hornest. The Web Pit because of how difficult it was to stay at that place. The spider folks only allowed passengers to, well, pass through the city. So we never really got a chance to see what the Web Pit was like, nor did we have a chance to meet anyone. As for the Hornest, it's because Caesar did not want to go back there. One day, while we were training by climbing up and down the Castanean tree, I decided to ask Caesar about his past on one of the short breaks we took. "You never told me," I said. "Told you what?" Caesar was curious. "About your past. The reason you seek to follow this path." "My past?" Caesar was hesitant to speak. "Come on! You already know about me. I do this to continue my family's legacy. We're best friends, right? Come on, tell me. I want to know," I pushed. "Fine," he finally gave in. My family. It had a tradition," Caesar said uncomfortably. I felt a little bad about pushing this out of him, but now that he started, he might as well finish it, I thought. Tradition? Yes. You see, he took a deep breath before finishing. The children of each generation of cicada wasps, when they turn 1 season old, they all fight each other, until only one remains. Caesar's hurt voice shook as the cold words left his mouth. Damn. What I heard deeply disturbed me at the time, but I couldn't even imagine the pain that Caesar felt, the agony he went through. It was so cruel. So you... I started, but he stopped me before I could let out my thoughts. Yes, I killed my brothers and sisters when I was only 1 season old. I killed them all. I could feel the pain Caesar felt through these words. He was looking at his top legs as he spoke. I'm sorry, it's okay. You're right. I know those things about you, and yet you barely knew anything about me until now. Caesar's eyes met mine, and I could see that he was holding back tears. Caesar, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to say, besides apologize. Caesar met me with silence. But why? Why did it make you do that? That is too cruel, not only for a child, but for anyone. I don't know, Caesar said. I never spoke with my father about it. I bet he knew why, but I never wanted to speak with him after what he made me do. I see. We spent a few minutes in silence before I muttered. That evil bastard. Don't worry about him, Caesar said. I was a little confused by this, so I asked him to clarify what he meant by that. I killed him too, he simply elaborated. My eyes widened as I realized what Caesar said. I killed him the night after I took the lives of all of my brothers and sisters. I killed him cowardly while he was asleep. I poisoned him. Then I took all the trowel I could find in our house, and then I just took off. I ran away from Hornest.
I spent the next few days just roaming around, not knowing what my purpose was now. That was until I overheard a few warriors talking about going to the Montesian tribe, to the church, to seek power. I decided that that was a sign for me to do the same. Maybe that church would give me the answers. And I found my answers then. I found what I was meant to become, and I found a friend. A tear dropped from Caesar's left eye. The rest of the day we spent in silence, as I didn't know what to say. A few days later, I finally came up to Caesar and said, "Hey, pal, I just wanted to apologize again for forcing you to open up. I'm sorry that I made you relive those horrible moments." He just sat there in silence. I want you to know that no matter what happened, no matter what will or will not be, I will always be there for you. And you will always be my friend, my brother. He looked at me as I finished talking, tears in his eyes again. "So, you don't see me as a monster?" "Of course not. It's not your fault. It wasn't your fault. You were forced to fight them. If you hadn't, then you would be the one who ended up dead. Besides, if you ask me, you're a hero." "A hero?" "Yes. You killed your father. You put an end to the real monster, the one who enforced that cruel tradition upon you." I never thought about it that way," Caesar admitted. I put my leg on his back to comfort him. "Caesar, it's all in the past. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it control you. Learn from it, and I know that you will be a far better wasp than your father ever was. We will achieve great things together. We will become heroes. Heroes that Castana will remember forever." Caesar nodded, wiped his tears, and said, "Then, thank you, brother." "No problem. Like I said, I'm always here for you. Now come on, let's relax with a little sparring. What do you say?" He smiled. "You're on." Weeks, then seasons passed, and before we knew it, it was time. Time for us to go to the battlefield. And so, exactly 2 weeks prior to the showdown, Caesar and I started heading there. And once again I remembered someone. A certain girl. A girl that I knew I would meet again very, very soon.